Welcome to lecture number 19. This is topic 2.8, the social construction of race and the reproduction of status. The first learning objective is to explain how Partus, Sequitur, Ventrem affected African American families and informed the emergence of racial taxonomies in the United States. The term taxonomies is associated with the classification of different species. The law Partus Sequitur Ventrem was adopted as part of various slave codes. It is Latin and literally translates to "the birth follows the womb," defining a child's legal status based on the status of the mother. For anyone who was enslaved or black, one major consequence of Partus was that it codified hereditary racial slavery. This meant that the children of enslaved African women would inherit their status as property, even if the father of the child was free or white. In those cases, the offspring would still be enslaved but might be classified as mulattoes in places like New Spain, where relations between different races and castes were more socially permissible. They expanded on a very complicated ranking of castes called the castas, visually explained through paintings like the one on the screen, depicting parents and the mixed offspring with the new denomination for the offspring. Another major consequence of Partus was that it invalidated African Americans' claims to their children. Women did not have full claims to their children and could not decide whether they would stay with them, be free, or be sold without their consent. This law was adopted across various slave states as part of slave codes to ensure the survival of slavery after the banning of international slave trade. It allowed for the population of enslaved people to grow through natural birth and prohibited mixed-race children or black women from inheriting the free status of their fathers, which was the norm through English common law. The Virginia House of Burgesses, for example, enacted Partus Sequitur Ventrem in 1662, formalizing this principle into law. Partus also became a tool for enslavers, giving male enslavers the right to deny responsibility for children they fathered with enslaved women, often through assault. Even if the relationship was consensual, it would still be classified as statutory. This control that enslavers had over enslaved women's lives can be compared to the feudal practice of seigneurial rights, which allowed any noble to take advantage of any feudal person under his dominion. Children of these unions could be sold or made to work on the plantation. Sometimes mixed-race children were given lighter workloads than the rest of the enslaved people on the plantation. Partus also helped to commodify enslaved women's reproductive lives, as their ability to give birth increased the enslavers' wealth through the birth of more enslaved people. Thomas Jefferson's relationship with Sally Hemings, an enslaved woman, and their children is a well-documented example of this exploitation. Some enslavers kept records of births among their slaves to track their property and potential future labor force. The second learning objective is to explain how racial concepts and classifications emerged alongside definitions of status. Race in this class and other disciplines is understood to be socially constructed, meaning it is not based on clear biological distinctions. There is nothing in one's DNA that points to a specific race. In fact, there is more genetic variation within a specific racial group than between different racial groups. In the 19th century, a form of scientific racism emerged, claiming that biological knowledge could be attributed to cultural, political, and economic achievements. The concept and classifications of racial types emerged in tandem with systems of enslavement and were used to justify the treatment of different races. By attempting to prove that one race was inferior to another, it provided a justification to treat the lesser race in a subordinate way. Phenotype, the set of observable characteristics of an individual, including skin color and hair texture, contributed to the perceptions of racial identity. Black skin and curly hair were associated with black Africans, and anyone fitting that description was thought to belong to the same race. During the era of slavery, racial categories were also defined by laws, important for purposes like census taking and representation in Congress. We talked in an earlier lecture about the 3/5 Compromise, which governed representation in Congress and created the assumption that anyone who was black was also enslaved unless proven otherwise. Statutes like Partus Sequitur Ventrem define some of these racial categories and tie them to the rights and status individuals could attain in society. In the United States, race classification started to be determined based on hypodescent, meaning that in a society with two different racial groups, one perceived to be inferior, the race of a mixed child would be assigned to the inferior race. One major example was Barack Obama, the country's first black president, who identifies as black and is classified as black despite his mother being white. This principle of hypodescent was also known as the one-drop rule, which stated that any person with even one ancestor of African descent is considered black. Before the Civil War, states differed on the percentage of ancestry needed to be classified as white or black, defined in blood fraction statutes. The most common rule was that one had to have less than 1/8 African ancestry to be considered white. Some states like Virginia required less than 1/4 African ancestry. By the 20th century, states adopted the one-drop rule, classifying a person with any degree of African descent as part of a singular inferior status. Virginia's 1924 Racial Integrity Act, one of the most famous of these laws, was challenged in the Supreme Court case Loving v. Virginia, which ended anti-miscegenation laws in the United States. This act also mandated racial registration certificates for all newborns, solidifying racial boundaries. The impact of race classification was that it prohibited some African Americans from embracing their multiracial and multi-ethnic heritage. Most enslaved Africans imported directly from Africa came from diverse regions and were quite different from others even on the same plantation. This new practice of race classification labeled everyone as black or African, erasing parts of their identity. It also erased the experience of African Americans with multiple ethnic backgrounds and was a system much more restrictive than the Spanish complex casta system, which created a spectrum of race even though it was discriminatory in its own ways. The Spanish casta system included over 16 different racial categories, reflecting the mixed heritage of the populations. By contrast, the English colonies' rigid racial classification aimed to maintain clear distinctions between enslaved people and free whites. In recap, Partus Sequitur Ventrem implemented slavery as a hereditary status. Enslavers used the law to continue exploiting the enslaved. Racial concepts and classifications emerged alongside the definitions of status. The one-drop rule classified a person with any degree of African descent as part of an inferior status. And race classifications prohibited African Americans from fully embracing a multiracial or multi-ethnic heritage. These laws and classifications have helped to maintain a social hierarchy that favored white supremacy and justified the continued exploitation and oppression of African Americans. Thank you for watching. If you would like to watch the next lecture, click the thumbnail on the screen. And if you would like more resources to help you study, you can visit apushlights.com/afam. I wish you the best of luck with your studies, and I hope to see you back on the next lecture.